Jeffrey Edward Epstein, born on the 20th of January 1953, was a Jewish-American financier and child sex offender. At the time of his death in August of 2019, Epstein's estate was valued at over $600 million. But who really was Jeffrey Epstein? To put it simply, Epstein was a known Jewish fixer, operating at the highest level of the elite strata, in business, finance, government, and high society. He moved through the international elite, allocating money, dispensing favors, and solving problems. Since his death, Epstein has become the subject of numerous grand conspiracies. He's been tied in with the Illuminati, the Khazarian Mafia, and occultist sex rings. However, these claims lack both truth and supporting evidence. Many people overlook or ignore the direct ties between Jeffrey Epstein and the Israeli government, its military, political figures, and intelligence agencies. To achieve an understanding of Jeffrey Epstein, who he was, what he was really doing, and what he was all about, we must have a basis in reality first. No AI forgeries, no typos, no data corruption, only the real information. Before I begin, please consider subscribing. Your support helps a lot. Jeffrey Epstein grew up as an American Jew in the early 1950s. His parents were of Lithuanian and Polish Jewish ancestry. His mother was a school aide, and his father was a groundskeeper. Along with Epstein's younger brother Mark, the family lived in Seagate, Brooklyn, a predominantly Jewish community. Epstein attended the Mark Twain Junior High School, where he earned money tutoring classmates. He graduated in 1969 from Lafayette High School at 16 years old, having skipped 2 grades. Later that year, Epstein attended advanced math classes at Cooper Union until he switched colleges in 1971. He studied mathematical physiology at New York University, but left without ever getting a degree. Where Epstein really got his start was at the Dalton High School, a very prestigious private school for members of the elite strata. Jeffrey Epstein was hired by the Dalton School in 1973 by a man named Donald Barr. Donald Barr is the father of Bill Barr. Bill Barr served as Donald Trump's Attorney General in his first term. Specifically, Barr was the head of the Department of Justice in 2019, when Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. Donald Barr was the headmaster of the Dalton School when Epstein was hired there as a math teacher. Not only was Barr a member of the OSS, the precursor to the CIA, but he was also a born and raised Jew. Although Donald Barr eventually converted to Catholicism as a front, he'd been born into a Jewish Zionist family. So let's scale out for a moment. Jeffrey Epstein is hired at an elite private school as a math and science teacher. He's hired by a Jewish Zionist former OSS operative, even though he had no prior experience in the field. He'd never been a teacher, he didn't have a degree, and he was unequivocally unqualified for the job. Nevertheless, he was hired at the school. This catapulted Epstein into the world of the elites, where he was met with networks and connections. The first job that Epstein ever got, he got because he tutored the children of Alan Greenberg, a very high executive at the financial firm Bear Stearns. Greenberg's children went to the Dalton School. Epstein was their math teacher and tutored them privately. It was through that connection with Greenberg that Epstein was able to land a job at Bear Stearns. Through Bear Stearns, he was able to pitch himself to Les Wexner as some kind of financial analyst. What we should take away from this information is that Jeffrey Epstein is a creation of the Jewish elitist higher society. The Dalton School is where all the rich people's children go to study and get an education. If you're a billionaire or a senator from New England, your kids are likely going to the Dalton School or another school like it. The superintendent of that school controls the faculty interface with the students, the children of the elites. Epstein got into the middle of that process and leveraged one thing into the next. Through connections and networking, Epstein got himself a position at Bear Stearns, where he quickly moved up the ladder to becoming an options trader. Now, he's a financial wizard, using help from his intelligence connections. He begins pitching himself to clients. In August of 1981, Epstein founded his own financial consulting firm, Intercontinental Assets Group. While at Bear Stearns, he began a relationship with Paula Hale, a well-connected saleswoman and former Miss Indianapolis. In the early 80s, Epstein and Hale started traveling to England together. She introduced him to Douglas Lease, a wealthy defense contractor with deep ties to the British government and arms industry. Epstein spent significant time in the Lease family's social circle, tutoring Douglas's younger son, Julian, and traveling with Lease to meetings with prominent figures as a consultant. He also traveled frequently between the United States, Europe, and the Middle East. Lease reportedly introduced Epstein to the financier Stephen Hoffenberg. Epstein was hired by Hoffenberg to work at his financial firm, Towers Financial Corporation. Ultimately, it was a massive Ponzi scheme. Strangely enough, the district attorney, Mary Jo White, brought charges against Hoffenberg, but nothing against Epstein. When White returned to private practice, she represented criminal defendants, including Les Wexner and the Sackler family, owners of the opioid manufacturer Purdue Pharma. The Sackler family was also responsible for killing thousands of people with opioids. People say that Jeffrey Epstein worked for Mossad, Israel's national intelligence agency. However, it isn't as simple as that. Israel, like any other country, has many different factions, agencies, and political ideologies, and they all combat each other. They have a right and a left. They have military intelligence, Shin Bet, and Mossad. There are many allegations that Jeffrey Epstein was a Jewish spy, working for Mossad and Israel. Israel's current Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, even addressed these allegations. However, he only did so because Epstein's direct connection to Israel was through Netanyahu's political rival, Ehud Barak. Netanyahu, who leads the far-right Likud party that has dominated Israeli politics for nearly 50 years, used the opportunity to distance himself and his administration from Epstein. He argued that it was impossible for Epstein to have been working with him or his government, since Epstein's ties were instead with his left-wing political opponent, Ehud Barak, from the Israeli Democratic Party. To put it into perspective, this would be like a Republican claiming that Jeffrey Epstein could never have worked for the CIA because he's associated with a Democrat. Democrats to Republicans are anti-American. Ehud Barak is anti-Israel to Netanyahu because of his affiliation with far-left anti-Zionist protests, and because of his critiques about the Netanyahu government, specifically after October 7th. However, in reality, Ehud Barak served as the Israeli Prime Minister from 1999 to 2001, and served in Netanyahu's government as the Defense Minister. Given this information, it's quite blatant that Epstein served the Israeli military, as Ehud Barak was the Defense Minister, and served in the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force. After leaving politics, Ehud became a salesperson for Israeli intelligence companies. He worked directly with Unit 8200, a subdivision of the Israeli Intelligence Corps, so he was able to infiltrate Silicon Valley. In the early 2000s, members of the division were sent out into the United States, specifically California, to create internet and tech startups. This was all a part of Israel's plan to slowly infiltrate our defense technology sector. This effort was prompted by Ehud Barak, who was in close proximity with the Israeli intelligence agencies and was in charge of their military. How does Epstein fall into all of this? Well, in the newly released documents, it's been revealed that Epstein and Barak had dozens of encounters with each other. In these new revelations, we've discovered that Epstein and Barak worked together to broker security agreements and arms sales on behalf of Israel. Epstein privately claimed to have been behind Barak's political resurgence in Israel. In a 10-year period, Epstein and Barak met over 60 times while Barak was serving as defense minister. Together, they worked on brokering surveillance, arms, intelligence, and defense contracts worldwide, most importantly to Silicon Valley. Alongside each other, they created deals with Carbine, the Wexner Foundation, Palantir, West Africa, and much of the rest of the world. So, just to sum it all up, they used their connections in Israel, in the United States, and in other countries to sell Israeli military technology with the goal of infiltrating other governments and their tech companies. With the help of Unit 8200 operatives, they successfully achieved their goals under the administration of Netanyahu, when Ehud Barak was still the defense minister. So what Epstein was really doing was putting Ehud Barak on and introducing him to various companies. Possibly the biggest introduction he made for him was to Peter Thiel, the co-founder of Palantir. For those who aren't aware, Palantir is an algorithm and data company founded sometime in the early 2000s. Their purpose is to take quantities of algorithms and data in recent years by using artificial intelligence and interpret it into vast sums of data. For the first 8 years of their existence, Palantir was working with the CIA. Palantir would take the loads of data the CIA would collect on foreign governments, US citizens, foreign affairs, oligarchs, and more. The information would get fed into Palantir so they could action the data and disperse it amongst their black sites, their detention facilities, their assassins, their kill squads, and their operatives. In 2008, Palantir was opened up to the FBI. This was useful for investigations, as authorities could now use Palantir's data analysis software to trace license plates, detect faces, and identify names. Recently, under Donald Trump's second administration, Palantir software has been introduced to various government departments, including the Treasury Department, the Social Security Administration, and Health and Human Services. This expansion followed the Department of Government Efficiency, aka DOGE, which required access to vast amounts of government data to identify and eliminate waste and unnecessary expenditures. Despite the conclusion of the DOGE operation last year, Palantir still remains. So what was Epstein's role in all of this? Well, he introduced Ehud Barak, former Israeli prime minister and head of the defense ministry, to Peter Thiel, a multi-billionaire and member of the Palantir and PayPal mafia. In other words, the head of Israeli intelligence, who was running a front, sending Israeli intelligence operatives into the United States to infiltrate our technology and defense sectors, was introduced by Epstein to the leader of the American tech industry, Peter Thiel. Today, Palantir is one of the biggest companies by market cap in the world. So, how was Jeffrey Epstein able to acquire vast sums of wealth, a townhouse, and an island? How did he become friends with everyone? Well, the answer is actually quite simple. Epstein was enriched by only two people, two clients by the names of Les Wexner and Leon Black. Epstein had no experience in tax or estate planning. Yet, after leaving Bear Stearns, he convinced several business elites to hire him as a financial advisor. One of those elites was Leon Black, the son of Elihu Blackowitz, a prominent Jewish businessman who ended up killing himself over a $1.5 million bribe scandal in Honduras. Leon Black found Epstein to be very impressive but highly mysterious. Black was particularly struck by the constant presence of young women that surrounded Epstein. In 1997, before Epstein became Black's formal advisor, Black and his wife appointed Epstein to the board of their newly created family foundation. After that, Leon Black and two of his executives donated $500,000 to one of Epstein's nonprofits. In exchange, Epstein introduced Black to his extensive network of women. Many of those women have since accused Black of abusing and/or raping them. Over a 6-year period, Black paid Epstein $170 million for what he describes as tax and estate planning services. The amount was far higher than what top law or accounting firms typically charged for similar work. Leon Black became Epstein's #1 benefactor by far, most likely because he was being blackmailed. Not only did Leon Black provide Epstein with almost $200 million, but he also introduced him to an infinite amount of new clients, such as Bill Gates, Steve Bannon, researchers at MIT and Harvard, Mark Rowan, the Rothschilds, and most importantly, Ehud Barak. Each shake of hand further expanded Epstein's roster of clients. Epstein even helps Leon Black with his tax avoidance scheme and with covering up his extramarital affair, while simultaneously receiving hundreds of millions of dollars from Black. Leon Black is deeply rooted in the New York financial industry and in the current administration of Donald Trump through his partner Mark Rowan and his son Benjamin Black, who is serving as the Chief Executive Officer of the International Development Finance Corporation. He is in charge of coordinating $80 billion a year worth of private sector investments given out by the US government. Benjamin Black is effectively working alongside venture capitalist and co-founder of Palantir, Joe Lonsdale, to cut aid to Palestine. Leon Black's partner, Mark Rowan, was recently placed on the Gaza Peace Advisory Board after giving Donald Trump $1 million. His job is to make sure the remains of the Gaza Strip become a new and improved smart city run by Jared Kushner. What do all of these names have in common? Leon Black, Benjamin Black, Mark Rowan, Joe Lonsdale, Jared Kushner, they're all ethnically Jewish. Jeffrey Epstein's second largest benefactor was without a doubt Les Wexner, a business and finance mogul from Ohio. He is also Jewish. In 1988, Epstein founded J. Epstein & Company, a consulting and financial management firm that exclusively managed money for high net worth individuals, specifically those with assets worth more than $1 billion. Epstein's only major client was Les Wexner, the billionaire retail magnate. Wexner is the founder of the retail conglomerate that includes Victoria's Secret, Bath & Body Works, Abercrombie & Fitch, and Lane Bryant. Wexner sold Epstein his townhouse in Manhattan for a very cheap price. He also had limitless access to Wexner's wealth, serving as his power of attorney. Epstein was able to buy, sell, and borrow in Wexner's name. Epstein's close relationship with Wexner helped him cultivate his power and influence in the 1990s. The Wexner Foundation includes the Wexner Heritage Program, a program that focuses on Jewish history, values, and texts, the Wexner Graduate Fellowship, which supports Jewish students' education, the Wexner Israel Fellowship, a program that scouts out Israelis suitable for leadership roles in the public sector, the Wexner Field Fellowship, a program for promising Jewish communal professionals, and the Wexner Senior Leaders and Summits, a program for senior managers that focus on supporting community resilience in Israel. What the Wexner Foundation basically does is they go into Jewish fraternities on college campuses and into businesses. They nose out up-and-coming Jewish leaders. The Wexner Foundation sends them to Israel so they can attend their summits. These people are then effectively groomed, given connections and networks and mentorships. So they're then able to rise through the ranks of the upper society. Then, they all come together and meet at AIPAC, aka American Israel Public Affairs Committee, a 6 million member organization that lobbies Congress and funds pro-Israel candidates. 96% of its backed candidates won in 2024 alone. Les Wexner also funded pro-Iraq war propaganda, a trademark Zionist ideology. Wexner also founded the Mega Group, a cabal of elites that met twice a year for seminars on Judaism and philanthropy. The Mega Group is also a pro-Israel lobby group. They work to influence U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East. It has up to 50 members, including Hollywood director Steven Spielberg. One of the other members is Ronald Lauder, who also knew Jeffrey Epstein. Ronald Lauder is the president of the World Jewish Congress. He also donated $5 million to Donald Trump's super PAC, and now his son-in-law Kevin Warsh is Trump's nominee to chair the Federal Reserve. This is who Jeffrey Epstein really was. This is how deep his connections truly ran, and this is the real smoking gun that no one is talking about. Epstein was groomed from the beginning by Donald Barr the same way the Wexner Foundation grooms young Jewish graduates into becoming media, political, and business magnates. Epstein was welcomed by the corporate elites who run the financial firms. From there, he leveraged one thing into the next. He built himself up as a math and tax genius, and then started pitching himself to the richest of the rich. He formed a Rolodex of clients, which he blackmailed and took advantage of. He made sure he was involved in every corner of the world by creating business deals across the globe, with some of the most powerful political figures, who he also blackmailed by inviting them to his island, where they had sex with underage prostitutes. Epstein was a product of the Jewish elite. He worked alongside the Jewish state of Israel, making arms and surveillance deals and spreading his influence throughout Silicon Valley. His most powerful clients were Jewish, most of them being in charge of the most prominent Jewish organizations in the world that dominate American foreign policy. Epstein himself was Jewish, which allowed him to effortlessly navigate his way through financial firms and big business. This is the real smoking gun, and this is the real Jeffrey Epstein.